Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So a lot happens in the Parsha we're reading this week, and with everything that's going on, I have to say, the women don't fare well. So when we look at what's going on with the women in the Parsha, it's not great moments. First of all, we're going to lose our matriarch, Rachel. Rachel passes away in childbirth as she's giving birth to Benjamin. And she names him with a very strong name, Binyamin. She says, "This is the child of my strength," so that he never be blamed for the death of his mother. And we're losing her, and she's so foundational. And we read in the Parsha, and she just slips away. And then we look at a moment where Reuven does something astounding. Reuven steps forward and sleeps with Bilhah, with his father's concubine, the woman who gave us a couple of the kids that are going to be leaders of tribes. Reuven does that. And we're not quite sure why he's doing that, other than to understand the ancient world. Because what's going on in the ancient world is Reuven is actually trying to assert that he will be the leader, because that's what leaders do in the ancient world. They bed the concubines and wives of their father. That's how they step into the shoes, so to speak, of leadership, of their fathers. This is how they assert leadership. Reuven is doing a power grab. He's trying to actually stand there and say, there's a shift in the generations. The matriarch is dead. I shall step in and be leader. And he does it through this action that he's doing. And we look at it and we realize, well, actually, he is the firstborn of Leah. It does make sense that he would think that he's going to be the next patriarch. But we're shocked by this. That's not how we do it. And so now we're looking at two women in that level of matriarchy. The wife, the matriarch, the concubine. And we're thinking, oh my goodness. And then, of course, Dinah. And what happens with Dinah in the Parsha? And when we look at what's going on with Dinah, our hearts break. It's Dinah's story. She's the only daughter, we've been told that. She's the only daughter in that vast family. She was the celebration. She was the one through whom Jacob fulfilled, be fruitful and multiply, because he finally got the girl. She's supposed to be this shining moment, and we think she's going to live a life that will be that life of contentment, fulfillment, and happiness. And then it's not. It's the story of abuse. It's the story of being kidnapped. And we're not sure how to read, because as we read through the story, there are two responses to what's happening to Dinah, and they're diametrically opposed. Jacob, the father, reacts and says, well, it is what it is. And two of her brothers, Shimon and Levi, react and say, no way it is what it is. We need to do something. And those two reactions are never going to be reconciled. They're never going to agree one to the other. One is not going to convince the other. And so we're left thinking, well, how are you supposed to react then? And to understand that, we want to go through the story of Dinah and what the Torah tells us happened. We're told that they arrive in a new place, near Shechem. And Dinah decides to go out and find some other women, because remember, she's the only girl. So she wants to go out and find other women so that she can build a community of women. And in the course of going out to find the women, she catches the eye of the son of the leader of Shechem. And his name is Shechem, and he's the son of, interestingly enough, his father's name is Hamor, which in Hebrew means jackass. And we look at that, and then we read on in the story, and what he does is he kidnaps her. He kidnaps her. He takes her. We're told he rapes her, and then he keeps her captive. And now she is being held captive in Shechem, unable, just victimized and abused there. When word gets back to the family that this is going on, Jacob says, what can we do? We're far smaller in number. We're far smaller in power. What can we do? It is what it is. It's unfortunate. He's willing to actually let her go. Two of her brothers, Shimon and Levi, say, no, here's what we do. And they come up with a plan. And as they're coming up with the plan, meanwhile, the abuser has fallen in love with Dinah. And this is the story of abuse, where the abuser feels, I can only be redeemed if the victim of my abuse forgives me. If they come and they tell me, no, you see, I did it through love. This was my expression of love. I love you so much, I hurt you. I care about you so much, I'm keeping you locked up. It's my expression of love. You have to understand me. And that's what's going on here. Because the abuser is coming to his father and saying, I love her. I want to own her. Daddy, buy me one of these. So the father goes along with Shem to the family, the abuser and his father, to the family saying, I have a deal. Let's let them stay together. In fact, let's join both our nations together. There's an idea. That would be great. And then we've got the brothers responding and saying, you know, it's a really good idea. We should join our forces. I think it's a great idea. The only thing is, your genitals disgust me. And they're that blatant about it. They say, we're all circumcised, you aren't. So your genitals disgust me. And they're using the language of disgust. And we're reading it and we're thinking, wow, they targeted the weapon that was used against Dinah. They headed right there. And they said, that disgusts me in you. And so they come to them and they say, so really what you have to do is you have to circumcise yourselves. If all of you circumcise, then in fact we're good to go. We will unite the two nations. And we're reading it thinking, really? That's the solution to it all? And so we're told they go back to their people, and interestingly enough, here's what they say to their people. That nation over there that we're talking to, they're very wealthy. So actually, if we join together, we can take everything they have. This wasn't a sincere offer. This was an offer to actually come and rob. We can take everything. We can take their flocks. We can take their wealth. We can take it all. We can own it all. And then they say the only thing they're asking us to do is all the men have to circumcise. Okay, fine, no problem. They all agree because the wealth is enormous. We're told on the third day, and our understanding is that on the third day, the pain peaks. On the third day, Shimon and Levi go in and attack. They attack all the men. They kill all the men. They take Dinah and they bring her home. And remember that we're sitting there trying to understand what's going on. Dinah is held captive. It's not a secret. Everyone is complicit. They go in there and say, that's it then. You're all guilty. You're sharing the guilt because you're turning a blind eye and you're letting it go on. So we're going to actually come in and get her out. And the only way to get her out is to completely conquer you, completely disarm you. They take Dinah, they bring her home. The father is alarmed. He's panicked. He said, oh my God, what have you done? Now, to save one, you put us all in jeopardy. They're all going to come after us. What you've done is horrible. And they turn around, and the statement they make is, oh, is our sister to be made into a whore? And it's a shocking statement. And there is no resolution. Jacob will continue to disagree with his sons about what he did and what they did, and they will continue to disagree with him about what the solution might be. And the dilemma that's presented to us is, do you sacrifice one person to save many? Because logic, as Jacob is saying, logic is you save many. And if you have to cut someone loose, you cut someone loose because you want to save the majority. And the counter argument is, no, you don't. You don't sacrifice anybody. It's not a numbers game. Each individual is a universe. You cannot cut anybody loose. And now we have those two worldviews sitting side by side. At this moment, Shimon and Levi's argument carries the day. How do we know it? Because the Torah gave them the last word. It presented Jacob's argument, but it countered with their words. And then that was the end of the incident. The Torah gives them the last word. So in this moment, it wins. But when we look at what's going on with Jacob, we understand his view actually informs Joseph's story. The Midrash tells us that Dinah and Joseph are paralleled. They're living each other's lives. And then the moment the Midrash says it, we look at it and it hits us. We see it. They're both kidnapped. They're both held captive in foreign places. And both of them actually face sexual victimization. The parallels in their lives are shocking. They're walking in each other's footsteps. And then when we look at it, we realize it's the issue of being a hostage, and they're both living it. with one difference. Dinah is saved and brought home. Joseph is left and cut loose. And we watch both the perspectives play themselves out in the lives of Dinah and Joseph. And because Jacob's view was the one that said, you can cut loose one of them, it's a numbers game, Joseph is let go, forgotten, cut loose, and Jacob, his father, who argued for that, is plunged into a lifetime of grief. He mourns the loss of Joseph for most of his life, and the text tells us nobody can pull him out of his grief. He's living his worldview. In that moment, we watch, and we look at what everyone is doing. When Joseph is kidnapped by his brothers first and thrown into the pit, they want to kill him. Reuven steps forward and says, don't kill him, don't kill him. We'll sell him. And in that moment, he saves his life. That's leadership. Reuven did the leadership grab. So everybody's listening to Reuven, except the solution isn't don't kill him, we'll sell him. The solution is don't kill him, we need to take him home. That isn't argued. And the Midrash tells us Reuven regrets that for the rest of his life. That he stopped killing, but did not take it home, did not bring it back the way the model said it should be brought back. And when we look in that moment of Reuven and Joseph, we are looking at who we thought were going to be the next leaders. Reuven, firstborn of Leah. Joseph, firstborn of Rachel. Leadership would vie between the two of them. And that's what we watch going on. So it's very loaded. When the text tells us, no, this was because Jacob favored one of them, that's only one layer. There's a leadership issue going on. Because we don't follow the Dinah model, we watch. Joseph ends up in Egypt. Nobody takes him home. Because he's in Egypt, the whole family's going to come down to Egypt. And because the whole family comes down to Egypt, we all end up slaves. We all end up in captivity, held in a foreign place with no one to bring us home. So God steps in to bring us home, to complete the model and to do what we did with Dinah. God is the one who steps in and says, you cannot leave people there. You cannot cut even one person loose. We learn from this a Jewish value and a commandment of Pidyon Shvuyim, that we redeem captives. And that commandment, we're told, is the first priority of every Jewish era. We redeem captives. We do not let anybody sit in captivity, held against their will, without going in there and doing everything we can to bring them home. Pidyon Shvuyim. We watch how important it is. We watch that it becomes high on our agenda because it is the Dinah model. It watches and tells us that of the two arguments, there needs to be resolution. And when Jacob is on his deathbed, he turns to Joseph and says, I'm giving you an extra inheritance. I'm giving you the city of Shechem. And then he says, because you were taken from there, except Joseph wasn't taken from there. You look in the text, he didn't end up in Shechem. Dinah did. So what Jacob is doing is he's bringing the two models together, realizing the parallel lives and saying we need to resolve this. I can't give it to Dinah. She's gone. I'll give it to Joseph. And that way, the parallel lives of the brother and sister will be able to intersect, and it's through the inheritance of Shechem. That's when the healing can start, because of the parallel lives, the ownership of the city, the recognition. Joseph should have been brought home. He should have been tracked, and he should have been brought home. We know it in our core. We see it in the model that we're presented with today. We see it fail in the model that we'll be presented with immediately after when the Torah tells us of Joseph. We watch the two worldviews and arguments play themselves out. And we know in our core. How do we know in our core? Russian Jews, Syrian Jews, Ethiopian Jews, Israeli soldiers, even one Israeli soldier. We leave no one behind. We do everything we can. We cut no one loose. Every one of us is a piece of all of us. It's impossible to say that one can be cut loose and let go. It simply cannot happen. We will all end up in captivity, in slavery. We've seen it play itself out. We understand Pidyon Shvuyim. We do everything we can because it's never about the numbers. It's about each individual person. We bring everyone home. Shabbat Shalom.